Under the spring sun, Griffin Military Academy looked like a machine in motion. Cadets jogged between barracks and classrooms in matched cadence, their boots striking the pavement in timed percussion. Voices rose and fell in practiced rhythm. Instructors barked orders without needing to raise their tone. Everything moved like it had been doing this for years. Then she walked through the front gate. No ID badge, no name tape, no shoulder insignia. Just a woman in a black windbreaker, cargo pants faded from more than just age, and boots that had seen more than tarmac. She carried a worn duffel slung over one shoulder, and it didn't bounce when she walked. It followed her stride like a shadow. A few cadets near the quarterdeck shifted in place, watching her cross the main thoroughfare with the kind of purpose that suggested she wasn't lost. No one spoke to her right away. Not until she neared the East Wing restricted during Officer Candidate Week, reserved for senior staff, mentors, and briefing personnel. A voice cut through the air, sharp, practiced. "Ma'am, that section's restricted. Visitors need to check in at the admin office near the west gate." The cadet stepping into her path was young. Clean-pressed khakis, spotless beret, name tape dead-centered on his chest, Bowers. His stance was firm, not aggressive. The kind of firmness drilled in at OCS assert but don't provoke. His hands didn't touch his belt, but the movement hovered there. She met his eyes, calm, no challenge, just acknowledgement. She said she was expected. "By who?" "Ma'am." Her voice didn't change when she replied, "Major Ridley. You have identification." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a tri-folded sheet, handed it to him without ceremony. He opened it slowly, eyes scanning the signature, the timestamp, the seal. Authorization to attend a mentorship session. Nothing about base access. Nothing about clearance. Bowers lowered the paper, holding it like it wasn't finished talking. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you'll need to wait here while I verify this with command." During candidate week, he didn't finish the sentence. Someone nearby chuckled. "Maybe she's logistics or admin. She doesn't look like an instructor." Another voice chimed in, quieter but sharp. More like somebody's aunt than someone with a call sign. She didn't respond. Didn't look around. Didn't tighten her jaw. She just stood there, still, one hand resting on her bag strap. Her presence didn't shrink. It settled, like smoke refusing to rise. Bowers turned slightly, as if waiting for backup. Cadets further down the hallway started watching now. Not openly. Just long enough for judgment to pass between glances. The authorization paper stayed in his hand longer than necessary. He reread the name. Dana R. Shaw. He passed the paper back, voice flat. "Appreciate your cooperation. I'm sure this won't take long." She nodded once and walked to a bench against the wall. Sat. Adjusted the strap on her shoulder like she'd done it 100 times. Somewhere behind her, another cadet muttered, "Still doesn't explain what she's doing here. No name tag, no rank, no reason." That got a few chuckles, nervous ones. At the security desk, an admin specialist glanced between his terminal and the hallway. The woman sat without shifting, back straight, boots flat on tile. Her eyes moved, slow, assessing the field like she'd done it before. No one noticed her left hand slip briefly into her windbreaker. No one saw the fingers brush a laminated card sticking from the outer pouch of her duffel. Not yet. And she didn't care if they did. She moved without hurry. The bench along the East Wing's glass corridor caught sunlight through the high windows. She sat, placed the duffel at her feet, and exhaled like it was routine. Like she'd waited on benches before. She shifted the strap on her shoulder, let the weight settle, then adjusted the outer pouch. That's when it happened. A laminated card, barely held together by yellowing tape, slipped partway from the side pocket. Faded ink, bent corners, smudges from fingers long gone. But one word still stood out in thick black Sharpie: Valkyrie. The reaction was quiet at first, a scoff from the cadet still near the checkpoint. Then a louder laugh from another seated across the corridor. "Call sign." "Yeah, right. Probably used it for CrossFit." Others joined in, half mocking, half curious. One leaned over to whisper something, got a chuckle. No malice in it. Just the easy confidence of those too young to imagine being wrong. She didn't flinch. She reached slowly, tucked the card back into the pouch, and resumed sitting. Hands on knees, eyes forward, posture unchanged. Cadet Jacob Landry wasn't laughing. He'd been reading notes on a digital tablet, prepping for a small unit tactics debrief. When the first voice cracked a joke, he barely looked up. When the name was said aloud, he stopped moving entirely. Valkyrie. The word echoed. He blinked once, slowly, let the sound settle, then looked across the hallway. She sat like a stone at the ocean floor. Still, immovable. His heart climbed a little. Just a notch. But it was enough. Valkyrie. He had read it before. Not in any training module or authorized reading list, in pieces, in whispers. During a long weekend the previous fall, he'd stayed in the campus archive room past curfew, digging through FOIA drop files and declassified battle briefs searching for anything that didn't fit the clean narratives handed to cadets. That's how he found Operation Firehook, Somalia, 2008. A failed joint extraction mission outside the Bakul region. Officially, it had been scrubbed from the mission ledger. Civilian presence too high, conditions unstable, extraction delayed. Unofficially, it went to hell. The only surviving log was a partial radio transcript. Everything else blacked out. This is Valkyrie. Package is secure. Commence blackout. He had reread that line 50 times. Imagine the voice that said it. Imagine the pilot flying through chaos, running no call. Probably no air cover. Getting a team out while command scrambled to pretend it wasn't happening. And now the name was taped to a battered card hanging from the bag of a woman. Sitting quietly outside briefing room 4, he felt cold. She didn't look like what he pictured. No hard edge, no gung-ho posture. Just someone who knew how to conserve energy. He stood slowly, set his tablet down on the seat, crossed the hall. One cadet, seated along the wall, gave him a curious glance. He didn't return it. His boots clicked across the tile. The hallway still buzzed with low chatter and faint bootfalls. The security desk checked IDs, swiped passes, logged rotations, but none of that reached the space around her. He stopped 2 steps short. She looked up. He couldn't place her age. Somewhere between 40 and timeless. Her face didn't say anything, but her eyes registered everything. Ma'am. He kept his voice just above a whisper. She tilted her head slightly. He pointed, careful, respectful. I saw the name on your ID, the call sign. She didn't answer, just waited. His throat felt dry. I read about Valkyrie. Not much. The documents are gone, but some fragments stayed. Reports. Redacted records, people talk. Still nothing. You flew Firehook. You got them out when no one else could. She didn't blink. Landry's voice dropped again. They said you landed without forward support. No close air, held the LZ for 20 minutes, brought them all back. She looked at him like she was searching behind his words. Not what he said. What he wanted from saying it. He didn't want recognition. He just needed confirmation. Needed the story to be true. Her expression didn't change, but the air between them shifted. Slightly. What you did. What they tried to bury. He caught himself wanted to say, I remember. She didn't speak. She didn't nod, but something behind her eyes softened. Just enough. Landry stepped back, careful not to break the spell. He didn't salute. Didn't say thank you, just retreated. He picked up his tablet, couldn't focus. The name hung in the air, and this time no one laughed. Cadet Jacob Landry stared across the hallway like he was watching a ghost. Breathe. The laminated card had vanished back into the duffel. She hadn't looked up again. She didn't need to. He leaned against the wall, letting his tablet rest against his thigh. His fingers didn't move. His thoughts did. Operation Firehook, Somalia. Classified Joint Recovery Mission, March 2008. He hadn't stumbled on it in any official syllabus. It was one of those Friday night obsessions. When others went to the gym or blew off steam at the base movie theater, he stayed in the records room. Air Force Academy archives weren't complete, but they were loose in the corners. He'd found fragments. PDF scans buried in folders labeled MISC Airlift Incidents. A folder marked Contingency Events, Horn of Africa. It was there, inside a corrupted scan of a transmission log dated 0315. 08-1902 local. This is Valkyrie. Package is secure. Commence blackout. The transmission was followed by 8 minutes of radio silence. When chatter resumed, it was administrative. Airspace clear. Report closed. He'd tried to chase it. Open source threads. Former operators who mentioned Firehook in comment sections before vanishing. A forum buried behind a defense news aggregator had one thread archived under OPS overshadowed by Yemen response. 2 users had debated whether Valkyrie was a person or a designation. One insisted it was a call sign tied to female pilots running unmarked. Fixed-wing aircraft out of Camp Lemonnier. The other argued it was just a ghost story, like the Raven flight out of Syria. Landry hadn't cared about folklore. He chased data. Most of it was gone. Redacted. Sanitized. But that one line had stayed with him. This is Valkyrie. Package is secure. It wasn't just the words. It was the tone he imagined behind them. Flat. Focused. A pilot confirming extraction while others panicked in the background. Radios scrambled. Comms dark. One voice making sense of chaos. And now that word had been sharpied onto a battered ID card. She hadn't said it. No introduction. No dramatics. Just silence. And presence. Landry rubbed his thumb along the edge of his tablet. The hallway noise blurred around him. Cadets rotated through shifts. Some left for meal break. One barked out Cadence softly as he jogged solo to the courtyard. She hadn't moved. Still on the bench. Still with the same stillness. Like gravity passed through her instead of pulling on her. He stood. Not because he had a plan. Just because not standing felt dishonest. He crossed the hallway. The same way he would approach a command post or unknown checkpoint. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. She looked up as he approached. He stopped at arm's length, boots aligned. Eyes down for a second before rising to meet hers. His voice stayed low. That call sign, Valkyrie. I read it once. No reaction. Her face didn't shift. He continued, Firehook, Somalia, the op that went dark. Report said multiple assets were compromised. Ground team stranded. Extraction failed. He paused, watched her face. Nothing. They said someone came in without cover. No ATC clearance. No gunship escort. Used terrain masking. Flew in low. Picked them up under fire. A slight narrowing of her eyes. Not agreement. Not denial. Just listening. He exhaled through his nose. The official version listed a medevac pilot MIA. No one filled in the blank. It ended with that one line. He waited. This is Valkyrie. Package is secure. Commence blackout. That made her eyes shift. Briefly. Enough. He didn't push. I never thought it was real. Thought maybe it was just code for a ghost flight. Or maybe a radio relay. Some kind of misdirection. Still, she said nothing. But she didn't look away. He tried one last time. Was it you? No answer. But something in her face changed. Not expression. Not posture. Just the kind of stillness that happens when memory becomes heavier than silence. That was enough. Landry nodded once. No salute. No thanks. Just acknowledgement. Then he turned, crossed the hallway again. His tablet still waited where he'd left it. He picked it up. Didn't turn it on. Didn't need to. He just sat there, trying to remember how it felt to believe in myths, and then watch one glance back. She shifted in her seat. Nothing dramatic. Just the small, necessary movement of someone adjusting fabric that had settled wrong on the skin. Her left hand rose to pull the cuff of her windbreaker, and the motion lifted the sleeve. The skin underneath was pale, but lined with use. A thin scar ran the length of her forearm, healed, faint, but not gone. It ended just above the wrist, where ink took over. The tattoo was simple, stark. 2 black daggers crossed under a raven mid-flight. The lines were sharp, military, not art. The kind of ink that meant something to someone who knew where to look. Most didn't, not immediately. One cadet near the admin terminal snorted. Nice ink? What's that? Some biker squad. He smirked, nudged the cadet beside him. But across the hallway, near the glass door, a corporal paused mid-step. He was older than the rest, prior enlisted. Reclassed as part of a commission track, his eyes caught the mark. They didn't move away. He stood still. Slowly, deliberately. He stepped closer, just enough to get a better angle. Then he stopped, shoulders locked, gaze fixed. It took another second before the ripple began. Someone else followed his gaze, then another. Each face shifted. The laughter dried. Words died in throats before they were spoken. The corporal didn't say a word, but his hand moved, not to salute, just barely to touch the outside of his leg, where a service patch used to be. Instinct, recognition, not of her name, but of the symbol. Because some of them had seen that raven before, briefed in shadowed rooms, attached to files no one was allowed to print, referenced in a footnote with no context, always denied, always buried. The Raven and Blades, a unit that didn't exist, not officially, not on paper, not in budgets or rosters, but when things went bad and no one wanted to admit it, someone called them. The room shifted, air tightened. A cadet who had been leaning back in his chair suddenly sat forward. Another looked at his boots. The joke had left the room. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Her sleeve slipped back down, covered the ink. Hand rested on her thigh like it belonged there. She didn't speak, didn't move, didn't need to. The corporal near the door kept staring, not at her, at the space around her, as if trying to measure how far the stories reached. One cadet cleared his throat and thought better of speaking. The admin behind the desk adjusted her terminal window. Fingers stilled over the keys. Bowers, still standing near the checkpoint, glanced toward the bench. His face had changed. Something behind his jaw tightened. They all saw it now. Not just a woman in old boots, not a contractor, not admin, not a visitor who didn't know protocol. Something else. Someone who wore a mark only seen in places where no orders were written down. No one asked about the ink. No one had to. It had already answered. The double doors at the end of the corridor opened without sound. No one saw who moved first. No one was told to stand straighter. They just did. General Thomas Harlan stepped into the hallway like gravity followed him. No announcements, no aid, no sound but his boots on tile. Heel to toe, measured and sure. Cadets snapped to quiet. No one called attention. They didn't need to. Conversations ended mid-sentence. A chair somewhere clicked back into place. The kind of silence that didn't ask for obedience. It expected it. He walked slow, deliberate, each step mapped to muscle memory. His eyes scanned as he moved, not quick, not searching, just reading the room. Left to right, cadet by cadet, instructor, admin, no change in expression. Nothing forced. Just observation from a man who'd commanded in places with no names. He passed the security desk. The corporal beside it straightened a fraction more. Then his gaze landed on her. 2 steps later, he stopped. No command. No motion. He looked at the woman on the bench like someone who'd found a piece of a puzzle he thought was lost. Not surprise, not curiosity, recognition. It settled in his face. Eyebrows tightened. Shoulders dropped half an inch, just enough to mean something. His right hand hovered near his thigh, the way it might before an order or a salute. He didn't move forward. Just stood there and stared. The general spoke. Valkyrie. Just one word. Carried quiet. Landed loud. The hallway stopped. No movement. No breath. Her posture didn't change. But she stood, smooth, controlled. Like the motion had waited on that word. She didn't look at him. Not right away. Her eyes found the floor first. Then rose. He brought his hand up. Not parade form, not ceremony. Respect. She answered it, palm clean, elbow square, returned it without pause. The salute held, then dropped. General Harlan didn't turn to the others. Not yet. His eyes stayed on her, voice low but sharp. You flew the Zulu corridor. She nodded once. Barely. 6 insertions. No cover. Comms degraded. He exhaled. Years in that breath. I thought you were gone. No report ever filled in the blanks. Wasn't my job to fill them. He turned, faced the hallway. Everyone stood. No one had been told to. His voice didn't rise. You assumed she didn't belong, because she wore no name, no bars, no badge. He looked at the cadet nearest him. Bowers. Still trying to square his stance with what he'd missed. She flew missions none of you are cleared to read. Her call signs carved into a wall most of you will never visit. She's why other people came home. He paused. You thought protocol mattered more than presence. A few cadets blinked. One looked down. That was your mistake. Not asking. Assuming. He turned back to her. You're still cleared, I am. Then let them hear you. She nodded once. No more. He stepped aside. And the silence followed her into the debrief room. The briefing room was smaller than it looked from the hallway. Tables arranged in a half moon, whiteboards still stained with old marker. Projector screen down but unused. Fluorescence hummed overhead, casting light that made everyone look a little paler. She didn't head for the podium, didn't take the head seat. She chose a spot in the middle row, sat down like it was hers. The cadets filed in slow, not the shuffle of disinterest. The weight of realization. Their movements had changed, measured now. No one said much. Chairs scraped softly. Notebooks opened without noise. She didn't start with her name, didn't start with credentials. She let the silence stretch, then she spoke. They told me this was about leadership under fire. Her voice didn't fill the room. It didn't have to. Fire isn't always bullets. She paused. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's being surrounded by people who've already decided you don't belong. No one shifted. I'm not here to give you war stories. She reached into her bag, pulled out something soft, folded, set it on the table in front of her. An old shoulder patch, faded black. Raven over blades. Most of what I did can't be taught. Most of the people I did it with aren't here to talk about it. She looked around, met eyes without holding them. But I can tell you this. You don't lead by yelling. You don't lead by quoting the rule book louder than the next guy. You lead by staying upright when things fall apart. A cadet near the edge raised his hand. Reyes, quiet type, logistics track. What kind of leader do you trust when everything's gone sideways? She didn't blink. The one who doesn't panic. The one who makes decisions without needing to explain them twice. Another hand, Brookstone, prior enlisted, infantry background. What about after failure? When trust is gone, start with silence. Let your next move speak louder than your excuse. There was no hesitation in her answers. Just wait. A pause. Then Bowers raised his hand. A small one, not defensive, just open. What do you do when people assume you're nobody? She turned her head. Looked straight at him. They're not the ones who decide whether I belong. Neither are you. No anger. Just fact. The room held that. Landry finally raised a hand. When you flew the Zulu corridor, she cut him off with a shake of her head. That's not the mission I'm here for. The words landed flat. Final. He nodded, didn't ask again. Ask me instead what it's like to come home alone. To pour coffee with hands that won't stop shaking. To stand in a hangar while they unload bodies. That's the part they don't print on plaques. No one moved. You want to learn to carry weight. Quietly. Even when no one sees it. No lecture followed. Just silence. The kind that taught more than anything she could say. She left the room without ceremony. Just stood, folded the patch, slid it into her duffel. Walked out the way she came. No one stopped her. No one said goodbye. Landry waited a moment. Let the others shift in their chairs. Let the quiet settle. Then he followed. The hallway outside felt different now, like the air held weight. He caught up near the academy's main exit. Sunlight had changed since morning. Warmer now. Shadows stretched longer across the courtyard. She was walking steady, hand on her bag strap, shoulders even. He didn't speak right away. Matched her pace for 2 steps. Then, why'd you come back? She looked ahead, not at him. After all that? After everything you've done. They didn't even know your name. She didn't stop, but she answered, I didn't come for my name. She slowed just enough to make sure he heard it. I came for theirs. He nodded. Didn't try to fill the space with anything more. She reached into her jacket pocket, pulled something small, held it out. He took it carefully. A patch, same as the one on the table earlier, older, worn around the edges, threadbare. He looked at her. What is it? She didn't look back. My unit. We didn't wear them. Kept them in our gear bags, just in case someone needed to know who got them out. He held it like something fragile. Keep it. Her voice didn't change. For when they doubt you too. Then she turned, walked toward the parking lot. Steady, no glance back, no farewell. He stood there, patch in hand, sun behind him. And for the first time, he understood what it meant to be silent and still matter more than anyone in the room. Landry stood still. The patch rested in his palm like it had weight, not in ounces, in memory. The stitching was rough in places, edges frayed. Thread once black now faded to something between gray and dust. The image was clear enough. The raven, wings out, two blades crossed beneath. He didn't close his hand around it, just let it sit there, uncovered. Exposed to the wind, she didn't wait. She was already halfway to the edge of the parking lot. Not fast. Just leaving. He thought about asking something. Didn't. Thought about saying thank you. Didn't. The moment didn't need it. The patch wasn't handed to be honored. It wasn't about gratitude. It was permission. Quiet. Private. Something you don't earn with grades or chain of command. You earn it by seeing someone no one else saw. By not flinching when truth sits across from you and says nothing. She disappeared past the row of parked vehicles. Landry didn't move. He looked down again. Didn't know what the mission had been. But he knew now what legacy felt like. It felt like silence. Like stitched canvas. Like something that didn't need to be explained. The flagpole stood just beyond the courtyard. Wind pushed through the trees, light but constant. The flag lifted, snapped once, then floated still. She walked beneath it without looking up. The shadow of the pole stretched across her shoulders, then trailed behind as she passed. No one followed now. No one called her back. Cadets stood in clusters. Some sat alone, elbows on knees, staring at the ground like it had changed. Their boots were quieter now. Their voices, if they spoke at all, were low, thoughtful. The rhythm of the academy had shifted. Still running. But something underneath had turned. Like a clock reset by a hand that knew what time it really was. One instructor leaned against a column, arms folded, watching the last of her silhouette fade toward the far gate. Inside, the mentorship room sat empty, patch gone, chair unclaimed. The lights buzzed above, indifferent. Landry stayed near the edge of the walkway. The patch now tucked into his notebook. His hands rested against the spine of it, eyes steady on where she'd gone. He didn't speak, didn't need to. Some lessons didn't come with outlines or slide decks. Some walked in wearing old boots and left without saying goodbye. Across the quad, the wind picked up again. The flag shifted, moved, then settled. And in that pause between gust and calm, something stayed behind. The most dangerous people in any room are often the ones who don't need to. Tell you why.